These are the answers on how to get good. I will now spend the rest of the video explaining to you why this is the case. Before one can become good at something, we need to know what good is. I will now define what good is in order to be able to look at this objectively. Good is a subjective term. Since I am doing an analysis, I need to look at things objectively. So, by defining good, this will allow me to be logically sound in my reasoning. Good is the opposite of bad. And that logically follows that bad is then the opposite of good. I still haven't defined what good is yet, other than just establishing that it has an opposite called bad. And by doing so, I can now assign a true-false value to if something's good or not. I will now create a scenario where it's possible to assign good a true or false value. The environment is a static environment, meaning that the environment will stay the same unless an actor alters it with an action. Any action done in the environment is executed solely by the actor. Now here's a real-world example from my kitchen. We have a cup and we have a shelf. The task is to move the cup to the shelf. I set my own goal, being that I will put the cup on the right side of the shelf. In this case, if I am able to put the cup where I have classified as the right side, would set the term good that we created earlier to true. If I didn't put the cup in the designated spot, good would be set to false, meaning that the term bad, which is the opposite, would be set to true, as we defined earlier. It is not possible to be good and bad at the same task in the same instance. I now have a measurement for good and bad related to this task, and I can build upon this further. I will now define a new term called mastery. Mastery is the skill of how accurate you are able to do tasks. There is no opposite of mastery. There is only a scale, such as high, medium, or low, maybe percentages. 100% mastery would be to place the cup in the exact same spot as I intended. Then, given the length of the shelf, we could quantify the distance to give you a mastery ranking depending on how well or how poorly you hit the initial target. If I put the cup in the middle of the shelf, I would have 50% mastery of the task. And so forth, we can actively measure mastery. For most people, lifting a cup is fairly easy, simply because it's a static environment, there's no other actors intervening with anything, and the cup will stay where it is until we pick it up, and when we put it down again, it will stay where we put it. For the sake of simplicity, I will not go into the actual complexity of muscle movement, gravity, and all other kind of physics that might intervene with this. Let's move on to a dynamic environment. The new task in the dynamic environment would be to catch a ball that someone else is throwing at me. Good would be determined whether I'm able to catch the ball before it hits the ground. The mastery, in this case, would be my ability to calculate the arc of the ball combined with my own movement in order to be able to move to the right position and catch the ball. Let's say that the person throwing the balls has mastered the art of throwing them, and he is able to throw them the same distance with the same arc every time. This means that the ball always lands in the exact same spot. In this case, I just have to remember once where the ball landed and just stay there every time he makes a throw. However, if the person throwing the ball does not have the exact same throws on purpose, I will have to make calculations on the go in order to estimate where to stand in order to catch it, since the angle, speed, and power of the throw will always be different. How you learn where to stand and how to catch them in your hand is called experience. I love my ball. Experience is the accumulated mastery over time gained by trial and error. In my example, I will try to run and catch all the balls multiple times. First, I will attempt to catch all the balls thrown. But eventually, I will notice a pattern and I will start to recognize which balls are impossible to catch before they hit the ground. As in, the thrower just throws them too far or too short, like just throws it straight down on the ground. This is the importance of experience. where you know certain facts from just observing an action many times. That sometimes the desired action is impossible to do, and there's no point in trying. As in, I stand really far away trying to catch a ball that is thrown, and it's thrown straight to the ground. Bringing this back on how to get good, you will need to utilize tools. Tools are what we talked about in the previous example: yourself, your hand, and your ability to move around, and so on. And using these tools in combination to do the task you are set to do. You can apply this to anything, so let's apply this to Team Fortress 2. As you probably noticed, there is a parallel you can apply to this game, with the tasks needing to be done, whether you are good or bad at them, and what kind of mastery you have doing the various tasks. Some tasks are hard to learn while you are doing them, and it's only after the task is completed you are able to sit and reflect upon it. You analyze what you did to be able to see what you could do better next time and improve. You need to focus on what you are doing with an active mind and reflect upon your actions later to have a truly good learning experience. People who play games with distractions enabled, such as music or multitasking and never reflecting on what you just did, will improve at a much slower rate compared to those who do. As they will only learn from the stuff they are actively doing at that very moment. This could be a reason for why some players never seem to improve or get any better, regardless of how much they play. Going back to the ball throwing example, it would be trying to catch all the balls thrown and never realizing which balls are impossible to catch. Let's have a little story time. Before I left for South Korea in 2011, I played on what is now a dead community called HiGPS. They had a lot of really good players, and one of them was named Sky Size, and he was an incredibly good sniper. I had only recently seen the auto-aim sniper frag movie and gotten inspired to play sniper. I was originally a medic main, but due to this video I was switching and I was going to be a sniper main. So I would practice sniper and I would do okay against most opponents, any class, except him. Whenever I had a fair duel with him, he would always beat me. Every time. I could never beat him. And if I did get him, it was either pure luck or I had the odds in my favor. I kept dueling him and I kept losing. And I could not figure out why he was always faster at aiming, but I kept playing. I had fun playing against him, since he was a good adversary, kind of like a nemesis, and he kept me motivated to keep practicing and get better. However, I was not able to beat him, no matter how many hours I put in. Then later, I left for South Korea and no longer played on HiGPS. I began to do the HiGPS show, where I began to analyze for the first time. And there, while doing analysis and getting into competitive for the first time as well, it was there I started to do MGE against other snipers. And I kept losing to them too, nearly every time. However, I did play with the snipers on regular pubs and in the competitive I just started, and I always did so much better than them there. They just, however, kept winning every sniper duel I ever had with them. I knew there had to be a reason for this, and I began to question my own actions. There's something wrong with what I'm doing, but I don't know what. So I started to record some demos, and I looked at them, and while I was observing, I saw a pattern. Every time I scoped first, I died first. That was the first thing I noticed, and I kept seeing this happening as a pattern, a lot. With this new knowledge, I just assumed that whoever scoped first is most likely to die first. I then began to second scope my opponents, and my insane lose streaks stopped. I had identified the issue, why I was doing poorly, and corrected it. I was able to spot something I did wrong and make it right. So let's have another example, which is not rooted in reality, but it's a hypothetical one. So let's say that you are an aspiring soldier, and you play a lot, but every time you encounter an enemy soldier, 90% of the time they win. They're not that much better than you score-wise, but every time you engage, you lose. And you will not stop losing until you start to look at what you're doing and think about what is actually happening. asking yourself questions and talking to yourself out loud helps. So you can narrate this. Every time I engage this player, he kills me. Okay? It doesn't give me too much information. What else? Well, I always attack him first. And he runs away whenever I have high ground or we are on the equal ground. Okay? And then I notice that he never runs away while he has the high ground. Okay, so maybe I should take the high ground too and run away when I don't have it. You never really do these thoughts while actively playing. This is the part of the reflection that you do after or before you start playing. So let's say you go into the game and you've had this discussion with yourself. Going into the game, you will now pay a lot more attention to high ground. Then you notice how huge a role high ground plays in soldier versus soldier. Team Fortress 2 provides a lot of tools and information outlets that you, as a player, should utilize. Compared to our simple example, it's a lot more. The tools here being activities such as rocket jumping, surfing, strafing, aim, class behavior, and so on. Tools like knowing how much damage you can do as a demo man against a heavy that is already shooting at you, knowing if you stand your ground who will die first if you land all the pipes. This comes with experience and cannot simply be taught. You need to get this feeling. Even if someone tells you, oh, just do it this way, and they can never get you. It is still required of you to have some mastery of movement and aim in order to pull it off. Having good balance is a skill that is built upon experience. You can't just tell somebody who's learning a task to just have better balance and tell them to stand like this or that. They will have to learn it themselves. However, it will help to say things like, hold your breath, or don't look down, or other stuff that you figured out on your own the hard way without anyone telling you. Similar to the soldier high ground thing. If nobody tells you, it might take a while for you to learn it. However, if people just tell you, oh, if you're a soldier, you should take the high ground for advantage. That will save you some hours in learning it the hard way, and allows you to get better faster. In conclusion, in order to get good, you need to have a mastery of what you do. You need to master movement, aim, and health calculation. Use the tools provided to you, such as sound, voice command, visual information. Practice. You gotta keep doing it. Have an active mind, as in do not turn your brain off like you are watching a movie or listening to music. Reflect upon your actions. After you have done, think, what could I have done better? And lastly, gain experience. You have to learn from the mistakes, learn what will work, and learn what is impossible. If you can do all of these, you will get good. If you don't, you might just stay where you are forever.